Hi, this is Lori Leisure from Interior Design Community, and I have Niall here with me. Hi, Niall.
Hello.
And of course, we have this awesome, amazing guest, Austin Handler, who is just the most cool guy. You're going to love him so much, and he has some great information for you. Hi, Austin. Tell us about your business, about your wife and your business together. And we want to hear everything.
Hi, all. Nice to be here. Thanks for having us. Me.
Yes, yes.
Um, where do you want to start? I don't know.
Well, tell us about your business. We'll start off telling about your core business in the Hamptons.
Okay. My wife Jennifer and I met in 2001 in New York City. We moved out to the Hamptons and got married late 2002 and launched an interior design business out there. That her background was interior design. She'd had a fabric and drapery store, and before that, a custom upholstery furniture store in Manhattan and Tribeca, and prior to that in Soho. And when we met, she wanted to get back into interior design and was building a house for her and designing a house for her mother out in Southampton, and got to fall in love with that area. So when we started talking about moving in together, getting married, what that whole next chapter of our life was going to look like, we started considering moving out to the Hamptons. Um, so that's what we ended up doing in late 2002. My background was in graphic design. I was working for McCann Erickson, it's a large ad agency in New York City. And the funny thing is our initial plan was I was going to keep doing freelance graphic design work. Um, and uh, and I would design her website and her business cards. And I was also a photographer, so I'd photograph her projects. And then the joke was, and if things got really busy and she had to go install a house and someone had to go meet an appliance delivery, I would help out.
The grunt.
Um, what ended up happening was I started helping her with the business, and we got an opportunity to do a show house. It was the first idea house that was put on by Hamptons Cottages and Gardens magazine. And Jennifer was a little. It's funny. She thought she didn't want to do it because it wasn't the Hampton Designer Show House, which was the big prestigious one. And I said, "Sweetie, I last time I checked, we opened our doors 5 minutes ago, and the Hampton Designer Show House is not knocking on the door just yet, asking us to do a room. So maybe let's do the one that we are being asked to do." Um, and she's like, "Well, she's like, I know how these things go. It's a lot of work, and you have to help me." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll help you." And that sort of jumped us into working together. Um, and then the funny story about that was um, the room that we designed at that show house ended up being published on the front page of the New York Times House and Home section. Um, and which was it's not usual that the New York Times even covers show houses, and the fact that they ran from the whole show house, they ran three photos, sort of a small photo of a bathroom, a medium photo of the living room, and a huge center photo of the media room, which we designed sort of like as a den. Um, I mean, it just Jennifer's sister called. She was like, "You guys need to buy 10 copies of the New York Times right now." So of course we did, and we understood what she was freaking out about. And from that point on, that's when the phone sort of started really ringing. And that's kind of what launched our business in the Hamptons. And then so we've been there for 22 years, and at some point you know, we just when we started off, we didn't have a plan to be like, you know, mega Hamptons interior designers. We just wanted to work and do projects in the Hamptons, and we were selective. We had young kids. We had kids very 5 minutes into being married. Um, and so our plan was to just stay local and just work in the Hamptons and specialize in that. And I mean, if you think about it, very fortunate enough that we had enough work just in within 20 minutes of where we live to be able to just work in that area. So we could be around for our kids and not constantly be on the road and traveling. So that was really our plan, just to make a nice living. Um, and what happened probably 6, 8 years into being out there and doing what we were doing. Um, we were start we advertised, we did a variety of things, but we started getting referrals from lots and lots of real estate brokers, some that we knew and a lot that we didn't even know. I mean, we heard their names, but and so at some point, like I started asking them, like, how did you come across us? And they're like, oh, you just everyone knows, like you're like the go-to, Hamptons designers. And Jennifer and I looked at each other, we're like, oh, well, I don't know how that happened, but okay, I'll take that.
That's
Um,
not a bad place to be, though, right?
it's not. Listen. I'm sure there's plenty of interior designers that aspirationally, wherever they start off, there's a goal of like, I want to be the go-to designer in my community, in my state, in the country, whatever. And that really, it just wasn't even on our radar. We just wanted to work and build a business and have a nice lifestyle and support our family. So it kind of caught us off guard, and then builders and developers starting reaching out to us kind of for the same thing. They wanted to work with us. They wanted our input on houses they were building, on developments they were building, because they wanted to capture the sort of quintessential Hamptons feel. And just the word on the street was we were the people that really had a handle on what was hot in the Hamptons.
I
Um,
I love
so
it.
that was sort of the start of our Hamptons, design experience.
But you've always, I followed you for a long time. We've been friends for a long time. And I love how you integrate your family into the design world. And I love how you handle that. I mean, Niall, you have small kids, and it's not always easy to juggle the work-life balance part of that. And
No.
you've done that awesome with like such like a great sense of humor. You've like, had really like attentive events for your kids. I remember your son's like Harry Potter birthday party, which was so fun. Like that's so cute. And I like you really elevated it. It's not just like from the design aspect, but even personally in your own lives. And how has that been for you? Are you able to juggle that? How do your kids feel about that?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, there are people that are great chefs and great bakers, and that's sort of their love language. That's when, they have dinner parties and they bake, wonderful cakes for their kids' birthdays, and they bake cookies and brownies and bring things, for housewarmings and things like that. And we're, we do okay in the kitchen, but I guess our gifts are in the design world. So like when you mentioned that birthday party, it was for our son Wesley's 10th birthday. And we're like, what, 10, it's a big birthday. It's still such a magical age. And he was so into Harry Potter. And we're like, we can do this. We can transform, the space into as much as we can on, within reason, and give him this sort of like mini Hogwarts type of experience, that we hoped he would always remember. Like pulling all that together from the design and the aesthetic point of view, like that was our ability. So the cake may have been a Carvel ice cream cake, but actually I think it was cupcakes. It was cupcakes from Tate's Bakery that year. But the aesthetics of it, we could handle that.
I,
Um,
I loved it. I really did. I thought it was wonderfully over the top in the best of ways. Do they love that you are these iconic design? Do they get that you're these iconic designers, or how do they? I've seen. I think I saw your one of your sons at the last High Point. So we were
mhm,
at that party. So they're kind
yeah,
of involved. I mean, one of your kids is going to High Point University, right? So
right. So yeah, so that's the nice thing about, he fell in love with High Point and wanted to go there. So, like no complaints from us because we knew we'd had built-in visits at least a couple of times a year when we go down for market. So that was great. It's funny. I mean, they've grown up seeing our work. We take them to show houses that we've done. They see articles and our projects published, and so they sort of grown up with seeing all of that. Our house was in HC&G years ago, when our eldest son was still small, and there's a photograph of him in there. So he thought that was kind of cool. It's funny, he periodically forgets and we'll pull it back out, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I remember that."
I'm famous.
Um, so yeah, I mean they've grown up with it, and I'm sure it's helped inform their opinions of design. Our eldest son likes his room to look, the way he wants it to look, but he's not heavily involved in it. When we renovated our house 6 years ago, we sort of showed him what we had in mind, and he's like, "Great, love it, awesome, thanks, guys." Um,
Well, he's a bit of
our
an
youngest son,
right? Like he's an
yeah,
adventure
yeah,
guy.
he
He's
is like
daredevil.
so his interests are much broader. When it comes down to sort of like where he's living, I mean, he's a whitewater kayaker and a camper, and he's in tents and things like that. So anything that's above a tent is it's pretty good for him. He's perfectly happy. Our younger son is actually more interested in design, and we showed him what we had in mind for his room when we renovated, and he liked everything. And then within a year or two, he's starting to question things, and like, "Oh, this desk isn't really working out the best for me," and I keep hitting my bed frame's really chunky. I keep hitting my shin on it, so maybe like a more slimlined, upholstered, bed frame. So what was interesting was he was actually responding to the aesthetics of what was in his room as well as the functionality. So if I had to, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if I had to put my money on somebody taking over the family business, it would be Wesley, not Colin.
Wow.
It's funny, and I don't know how you feel about this, Niall, but my kids have been, I really believe, I read this book years ago when my kids were young about how our society has lost apprenticeships in general, that we've
Yeah.
lost the idea of like teaching young people from a young age a trade or career.
Yeah.
And that's part of why the trades are doing as poorly as they are. I mean, it's also college being pushed rather than like being able to have that trade. And so that is sort of, I think now going back on, it's changing.
Yeah.
And my family, we are, we were all, I want to say we were all college educated, but my grandfather was a president of a community college because he went to school and got his master's, and he lived in a rural area in New Hampshire and wanted to bring education to that rural area, and went to the city in the state and really asked them to put a community college way up in the North Country. And they did. They ended up and he was the founding president of that college. And now it's one of the most successful community colleges in the state, and they do a really great culinary arts program. But we've always, like, from a young age, my grandparents were always talking to me about trades and how that is really the backbone of our our country. And my kids, I've always talked to them about that and taught them things through the way. And like, I remember like teachers coming back to my kids, and I would teach them how to use tools like, Photoshop, and, they're doing a report. I'm like, this is how you really do it, how you research it, how you get in touch with like, I remember my daughter did a report where she had to she had to figure out how to put a statue in New York City. So she contacted a person who does that. And she was like, how would you do this? Everyone else in her class did it. Like, they figured out how much marble. She's like, you wouldn't do it marble. You're moving it. It's temporary structure. You'd put it with foam and you'd concrete cover it. This is how much it would cost. They gave her a real quote. So it was like, she got a different experience because we were giving her that different experience. And I feel like you're doing that same thing, as you're really trying to involve your kids in the business, getting them exposed to what what they need to know. I think there are a lot of designers
Yeah, it's,
in that same
I
boat.
think, well, I think that's the thing. I joked. I don't think either of our kids are going to go into the family business, but but it obviously, design's important to us. So, we try to educate them with what we're doing, both in our house, when we go to show houses, when we go to museums or historic places. We, try to, imbue an appreciation for history, architecture of
Culture.
places, and hopefully it all seeps in
Well, it doesn't
to some
matter if they
degree.
go into design. It matters that they're exposed
They
to,
can appreciate it.
yeah,
Mhm.
they're understanding how
So
this runs, really.
you mentioned the lack of people going into the trades, and it's so funny. So we were talking a little bit about, I mentioned Colin's a big whitewater kayaker. So the summer between his junior and senior year, he came to us and he said, I've heard about this amazing traveling boarding school where you can go and um you do lessons in the morning and you kayak in the afternoon. Um, can I go? And we're like, you've been going to this school since you were in first grade. Like, you're going to graduate from your school. Like, no, you're not just going to you're not going to transfer and do like your last semester. You got to, do your senior project. You've got to do college applications. You got to get into college. Like, no, absolutely not. So we shut that down. And then a couple days later, Jennifer and I were talking. We're like, well, I mean, it's his passion. Maybe there's some way that we can make this work. So we first thing we did was we called his school and said, "Here's what he wants to do. It's not going to be for the whole year, but second semester, um, could you, Chelsea, second semester, if he's passing all his classes, college application, senior project, all of that. If he does all of that, here's the school. Look at the curriculum. Could you transfer the credits back so we can do that and then come back and graduate from the school?" And they looked at it. They said, yes, great. So we told Colin, can't go for the whole year, but second semester, um, this is totally on the table. You just have to do all the things you need to do. He did all the things. He went. It was a life-changing experience. And part of the reason that we were on board with this, part of it is wanting to him to be able to follow a passion, but the other part of it is that there's not much going on second semester of of your senior year anyways, and so why not be able to do something like this? And what it got me thinking about, and this is a long way to get to the point, is there are so many kids. Every kid that, I mean, listen, some kids have jobs that they can't just walk away from. But really, if you think about what happens, second semester, senior year in high school, it's a lot of nothing. Everyone's gotten into college at that point, or has figured out what they're doing next. How great would it be for nationally, for second semester, senior year, have kids do something, whether it's pursue an athletic endeavor like Colin did, whether it's do a volunteer you know semester, whether it's do an apprenticeship or an internship. um, there are so many interesting things that they could spend their time, that 2-3 months before they graduate. I feel like not only would it be so enriching, I feel like it would almost be a way to learn something, but also give them an opportunity to grow up. I feel like you're going to have kids that end up going away to college with a stronger idea of what they're interested in or maybe not interested in. Um, Send someone to an apprenticeship, they can learn something. They may not end up pursuing that as a career, but if they've made something, if they've learned how to create something, um, that's something that will stay with them. So I know it's a kind of a pipe dream idea, but
No,
it's
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 huge.
it's one of those things where it's if you just flipped a switch and that became a thing, I think it would be so much healthier for kids as they graduate high school and go on to whatever's next.
We had
Yeah.
a couple of girls that came to live with us for a few weeks, like almost a month. They were German exchange students. My daughter did the German exchange student. We did it here, and they regularly in Germany do a internship that is extensive for their senior year. They will work at a company and try their hand at something that they're kind of interested in during their senior year. And I really believe that that is something that we need to start really considering for I think it would solve a lot of problems where kids really, don't know anything about what they want to do. They're not learning. My daughter did this program that was like a science, technology. It's called STEAM, engineering, art, math. She wanted to be a doctor from a young age. She ended up that program allowed her to go to college early, which was getting a dual credit when she was a junior and a senior. So she went to like a community college during her junior and senior year, and she got credit for high school and those credits for college at the same time. And, I wouldn't have my other kids, I would not have wanted them to do that because they weren't like as self-motivated as she was. We were kind of like antsy about her doing it, but she did it and she did very well with it. It was good for her. She, during her senior year, got to intern at a hospital and see surgeries and, a lot shadowing surgeons. That was really great. I think learning these things are really important. Like you said, it's either whether you want to do it or you don't. Like you're learning, I don't want to do that at all. I think that's fascinating.
Yep.
But yeah, it could absolutely solve some major issues. Some major issues. So, you've got your kids involved, you've got, it's a family business by far. You have this, great program with, some licensing deals too, that you've integrated into your business. How did that come to play?
It was kind of out of necessity. We've told the story before, but it's it's such a great lesson in looking at your business, but also, from a sales point of view, I give our Cravat sales rep a lot of credit. So we've been a Cravat customer for a long time, and one day our sales rep came in and we were busy doing other things. And normally he comes in and just updates our books and waves, and you know, if we're not on the phone or in a meeting, we'll have a little quick catch up with him. And one day Brad came in and said, I need to talk to you guys. Like, I'm good for the rest of the day. Just finish what you're doing. I'll sit here. I'll do emails when you're free. Let's sit down and chat. We're like, oh my God, is he leaving the company? Has something happened? And so we sit down with him. And he's like, guys, I've been looking at your sales. He's like, you've been, my top furniture customer for years, and your numbers are way down in furniture orders. What's going on? What are we doing wrong? What can we do? And so we kind of thought about it. We're like, you know what? You just know, we didn't realize it. But good for him for sitting down and analyzing the numbers and then bringing it up in a conversation. We're like, it doesn't seem like you've been introducing a lot of new frames. So, there's only so many times we can use the pieces that you have. And, you have a lot of brown furniture, and, we're in a coastal area, and we're doing lots of grays and driftwoods and more cool tone browns, like blonde bleach type, oak. And you're not introducing any of those finishes. So it's kind of hard for us to even find finishes that we like for these frames. And he said, oh, that's really interesting feedback. Would you be willing to sit down and discuss this with our design team? And she's like, yeah, we could do that. Or we could just design a furniture collection that
Jennifer, by the way.
that epitomizes, yeah,
her.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And so, that was sort of the start of the conversations that we had. And we went and, took a couple months and designed it and presented it. And, we drove back from the meeting at Cravat in Bethpage, and got back to our studio, and hadn't even sat down yet. We're just, giving everyone, giving all the designers the wrap up of how everything went, and the phone rings, and it was Kravitz, and they gave it the green light. And we're like, how did that happen so quickly? And we later found out was, when Brad came in with this idea, that we had pitched, they'd also been hearing from a lot of their reps, other reps coming back to Kravitz saying they have customers that are asking for more coastal inspired finishes. So for them, it was just like, sometimes you have to listen to the customer. If you're hearing this from lots of different markets, there's probably something there. And then here we are offering to design a coastal inspired furniture collection. So it was, I mean, obviously there's a certain aspect of it of being in the right place at the right time. But I think, designers are all designing in their own world, but when there's a lack of something in the market, you're certainly gonna have designers that are feeling it. And when you have, as trends move, if companies aren't jumping on it, they either have to be aware and hear that, or if they don't listen, and if they're not on top of things, that they'll kind of get passed by. And that's not to say that you should always be chasing trends, but
I don't think you should be chasing
when
trends, but I do think you should be chasing what interior designers like, because
yeah
I have had so many conversations with brands through the past years of running interior design community, and more of them than you would think have said to me, we listened to this interior designer, and all of a sudden that became our bestseller. Over and over again, because you understand the market in a different way. And yes, like I think trends are coming now, like interior design drives trends, and also like influencers drive trends for sure. But you'll find the sustainable bestsellers always in the design industry. They know what really is functional and what really works, not just aesthetically, but like what is going to work and what has legs. And I think it's weird that this was like right place, right time, because I gotta tell you, like more often than not, the designer getting into licensing game is driven by that need to, from the designer's perspective, to gain more income, like have a different income revenue. It never happens the way you're just describing. Never, never. You guys are like the king and queen of like being in the right place at the right time, and just like landing in the, but also like amazingly talented, but being in the right place in the right time and having everything line up.
What's funny is Jennifer and I have been talking for years, like, oh, we've got to design a furniture collection. Libby Langdon's a dear friend of ours, and she's just so phenomenally talented, and also so smart about her licensing deals and having multiple licenses. And so, she was sort of inspirational to us. And we're like, oh God, we've got to, find the time to sit down and design some collections. But with, with two kids, and we've got a pack of dogs and cats as well. And the rest of our busy client work. It's just something that kept getting, put off and put off. And then it sort of took this to finally get us to buckle down and actually design something. So it was absolutely something that we'd been planning for a while, but just didn't have the time to sit down and design it. But then once we did, we're like, okay, now we got in the rhythm of it. We end up doing a second collection for Kravitz. That was, I think that was the last time we saw each other. And we have a lighting collection with Rochambeau that's scheduled to launch at Spring Market. And we have a rug collection with Jaipur that will launch probably next year. So it's sort of, once we got into the licensing world, it kind of kept our head in it and saying like, okay, what's next? What are we not finding? What can we create? What can we use for our clients? The first collection for Kravitz was coastal inspired. We had a couple of big projects in New York City that started a couple of years ago. And so with our collection, our second collection for Kravet, it sort of had more of a metropolitan
Yeah, it was,
focus.
I was thinking it
I
was more
think
metropolitan for
so.
sure.
I think that's, that's sort of, and I think that also is part of the inspiration in our lighting line as well. But then now as we're in Palm Beach, we're starting to think about what our next collection is, and how Palm Beach is going to
Bringing
inform
that
that.
tropical vibe. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
How has this been
And that
financially for you too? Like, are you seeing income from it? Are you, because I know licensing deals, it's a stable situation. You have
yeah.
to have multiple of them to really start seeing anything, how are you
So
feeling about it?
yeah, so Libby and plenty of other people that have been in that world have said, listen, it's a nice little addition, but it's not going to make you rich. You're not going to retire off of it. Um, and so we didn't go into it, expecting that we could just quit our job and just, wait for the licensing checks to roll in. But having said that, they've been really nice. It's, and I, as you can imagine, I mean, for us there, it's like it's a quarterly thing. So if you imagine you have, one licensing collection and you get a quarterly check, well, that's like a nice, because it's like a nice little bonus. But if you have multiple collections and in different things, and you're constantly updating those collections and adding new collections, I think if you're smart about it, you actually can do quite well with it.
It's like an
I know they're
with those residuals, right? You're just like,
yeah.
you get,
And what's great about it is it's the work is all front loaded. So you spend a year, 2 years working on this, and for nothing, and then it's finally done, and then all you have to do is do a little promotion, and
well, you do a
and
great job with promotion. No offense. Like you do actually.
well,
Not just a little bit.
we
You
we do it to the it's we try. We don't want to hit people over the head with anything,
no, but
but
you make it
we
fun.
try.
You make it
Yeah,
inclusive.
we try and make it fun. Like we're fun people. We like to have fun. We 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 like to think we have a good sense of humor. And I've seen plenty of people in design, in plenty of other industries that just take themselves so seriously, and
Ugh.
are always like trying to put on the best impression, and
Oh my
always
God.
trying to sell whatever whatever it is they're doing. And I just listen. I can't speak for everybody. I just know my reaction to that.
Yeah.
And when I see people that have a good sense of humor, and can post one day about a collection that they have, and the next day about like getting caught out in a rainstorm while walking their dog, that's real life. Like
That's
that's
human.
Yes.
that's someone I'm interested in.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because like I went recently to a design. Well, so I like it when I first came into this industry, I remember meeting this person who was like, and I won't name this person, but they were like, I'm famous. It's like,
Oh my
I don't
God.
know. I've never, because I didn't come from
What?
this industry, so I didn't know who they were, of course, because I've never met them. And then I recently went to a trade event like at Delta Brizo, and somebody was like, "Oh, I didn't know a celebrity would be there and he'd be here," and I was like, "Who?" Like they were talking about me, and I was like, "Okay, wait a minute, that is not." Like, and I cannot believe people who buy their own BS. Like that's this part of this industry that always kind of like throws me, is like, you do realize like nobody knows who like we're like in the interior design world, you might know like Bobby Burke is fantastic, right? But like the
Yeah.
outside world, like if you're not watching Queer Eye, you don't know who he is. Like you don't,
Yeah.
So it's like we
Yeah,
have to
true.
be very careful not to like. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and there's a lot of luxury, but I love the people who take it like with a little grain.
It's a
It's
it's a good point. Like it's you're right. Like the most famous interior designer, whoever, you think
Sure.
that might be, you know, the average person is probably gonna be like, who?
Don't know. They don't know. Like I'll talk to people I think like about people I think are iconic, and they're like, I've never heard of that person. And I was
Yeah.
like, you don't know who Benny Williams is? Are you kidding me? Like, no, how? How? Are you live under a rock? But it's just
I feel like that's exact same thing happened. I think we at a Hampton designer show house, we were using a cravat fabric that part of a Jonathan Adler collection. And I feel like I was, talking with some friends that were asking about the show house, and I'm like, oh, we're using a Jonathan Adler fabric. They're like, who? I'm
who?
like, and he has stores as well. He has
Yeah,
product like,
yeah.
and I'm like, how do you not know
Oh
who
my, oh
Jonathan
my
Adler
God.
is? But that's the point. Like even the most famous interior designer, not necessarily famous in the,
Outside of design.
outside of that world. Yeah. So you
So you
definitely,
careful.
you definitely don't need to, to pull the whole, don't you know who I am card. That's a little
I
silly
think it's so
because truthfully, a lot of people probably don't.
no. And I think it's really, really weird about this. That's the one weird thing that I think I found about this industry is some people who really, start to believe it. Like they start to think like I'm famous. And you go to meet them at the trade show and they're like, I'm very important. Okay.
There's a designer who shall remain nameless, but he's been on TV shows. He's you know has collections. I've met him probably half a dozen times, and I get it. I get it. People in that sphere meet tons of people, but like when you've met someone, 5, 6 times, like come on, like
You know who I am.
you've
Yeah.
just at least humor me and be like,
Like, yeah,
oh,
sure,
like I'm blanking on your name. You're so familiar, like but like it's a little eye rolly when when you get the nice to meet you for the fifth and sixth time. You're like, all right, this is
Uh,
how we're gonna do this. Okay, all right, buddy.
But that's what I love about you is that from day one since I met you, you've been super funny and just down to earth. And it's awesome to see the success that you've had. So I really kind of want to roll into talking about this new showroom because like I'm blown away actually that you're doing this because you're in the Hamptons, it's in Florida. So this is a time in our world where I know showrooms are shutting down right and left. So that alone, it seems scary to me. And then you're managing that somehow across the country. I want to know all the details of how that happened. How did you decide to make that move?
So it's your setup is so funny because you're right. It's equal parts insane, but also if you know us, like Jeff and I have been talking about this probably for 6 or 7 years. We've wanted to spend more time down here. We love the aesthetic of design in South Florida. It's completely not what we do in the Hamptons. There's such a rich history of design and architecture down here that we are in love with. So this has been something we've been talking about really 6 or 7 years. We were down here. I mean, this is so ironic. We were down here right before COVID shut down. I mean, we almost canceled our trip down because we're like, "Ooh, this coronavirus thing, I don't know. Seems like it might be getting serious." And then we flew down and nobody else seemed to be worried about it. We're like, all right, maybe
That
it's
is
not a big
Florida
deal.
though.
That is Florida. Absolutely. It was then and it still is now. Um, but we were down here that weekend before lockdown, and we were looking at houses and we were looking at commercial real estate, and we almost signed a lease on something on the island and on Palm Beach Island, for a small storefront. And our initial plan was to open up an interior design office that would be, relatively small, big enough to have a couple little design vignettes. Our idea is we'll do like a little living room vignette and a little dining room vignette, and you know, and those could also double as, you know, places to sit and meet with clients, and the dining table could be, you know, a sort of a working space if we need to lay out fabrics and things like that. And that was kind of our plan. Then lockdown happened, and as relieved as we were that we didn't sign on the, you know, on the commercial real estate, because it would have been very hard to start outfitting, you know, outfitting that during that time period. Boy, we sure wish we'd bought a house back then, because like the Hamptons, so many people moved to Palm Beach area. So many people moved to the Hamptons during the pandemic and immediately following. So it's driven real estate prices up, but it's also the demand for design services it's always been strong in Palm Beach, but even it surged even more. Um, so then in 2022, we put a ballot in, since we'd opened an office in New York City and we were working on some big um, design projects in New York. We put a ballot in for the Kips Bay, New York show house in 2022. And they couldn't find a house that year. So I think in 2021, they didn't have the show house because of COVID. 2022, they couldn't find a house. So we're like, oh, that's disappointing. Um, and then we said, oh, we called Nazira from the Kips Bay Show House and was like, what? Maybe slide that application, you know, that ballot from the New York Show House over to the Palm Beach Show House. You know, let's circle back to Palm Beach. And so we did the Kips Bay Palm Beach Show House last year. And the space we did got great feedback and attention. And lots of people asking, you know, are you based down here? Do you have a store? Do you have an office down here? And Jeff and I looked at each other. I mean, this is literally the opening of the show house. And we're like, yeah, we said we were going to do this. And, you know, whatever, 5, 6 years have gone by. And what are we doing? Like, if we're not going to do this now, what are we doing? So we immediately jumped onto looking at commercial real estate. And um, we found an amazing place on South Dixie Highway. It was not what we initially were looking for. It was a full-on retail space, showroom type of building. But what was interesting about it was it had this great retail space. It had a couple of little sort of self-contained rooms that could really be like little design vignettes, very contained. And then in the back there's a big open room, which I'm actually sitting in right now. And we said, this is actually amazing. That could be our design studio. We've got retail space up front, and you know, Jennifer had a background in retail, so she, you know, it didn't completely freak her out to the idea of opening a store. But the more we thought about it, you know, we said, well, yeah, we could open up a small office and hope people are just wandering in off the streets because they see a sign and it says interior design on it. But, you know, but what better way? And if we were, maybe if we were 10, 15, 20 years younger and had the time frame and the patience to sort of, you know, build a business, because it's like starting, you know, it's starting a new business in a new town. We considered the retail aspect of it and said, you know what, having a retail store gets a lot more people in the door, and it's an opportunity for us to the pieces that we put on the floor, the spaces that we curate, and the design vignettes we put together, and even just the interior design space. I mean, what better way to let people know what our aesthetic is, what, you know, how we design in Palm Beach and in South Florida. And if you like what you see, then you know, it's probably a good fit for us as an interior designer. And if you're not looking for an interior designer, but you just want to buy some chairs and some upholstery, some accessories, you know, a candle, we also have that. It's the lure of the retail aspect of it that gets people in the door. But we also know from other people down here that, so many people are looking for designers, not just in the Palm Beach area, but all throughout South Florida and even further north and south. And a lot of times they're looking online and on Instagram, but a lot of times on the other end of it, they're coming into town and into the Palm Beach area, because it's sort of the epicenter of design in this area. And they're looking in stores, for ideas and to meet designers. So that's sort of what fueled that part of us going from maybe a small interior design office to a retail showroom.
Now, so did any part of that have to do with the kids getting older and having more time to be a little bit?
100%.
Okay.
100%. The idea was that, we couldn't, and that's probably why as much as we were talking about this, 6, 7 years ago, we weren't going to, it wasn't in the wheelhouse, for us to just launch something while our kids were in, middle school and just going into high school. But that's the other thing from a timing point of view. The success of the Kips Bay room, that was sort of the catapult. But it was also, kind of going back to the right place, right time. Like, our kids, one was already off to college. One is now a junior in high school. So, we're sort of planning the next phase of our life. And,
Empty nest phase.
you know,
That's the favorite.
yeah, yeah,
I'm waiting.
exactly.
Can't wait. I love my kids.
Yeah, and well, it's true. It's you love your kids, but you want to see them go off and succeed. And then at the end of the day, you realize this. As for Jennifer and I, when you're with a partner, not everyone has kids, but if you have kids, like a big part of your life is raising those kids. But there's also the couple,
Sure.
that you started off with, and I think if you don't, as a couple, if you don't put a priority on what you love as a couple, and try to find time to do that, and talk about what what you want to do together, it's easy to to sort of let all that die. And so we talk about what we love and what we want to do, where we want to go, and how it's all going to work out, and being able to spend, I mean, I don't, we're not moving full time to Florida. But having said that, once our youngest son Wesley's off to college, and we're not tied to the school calendar the way we have been for the last 20 something years. um it would sure nice to be more mobile, and especially be able to spend more time in a warmer climate in the winter. So a big part of this happening now was, part of it was Kips Bay momentum, and part of it was like, let's put the effort and build it now. It's he's our son is, my mom lives in Sag Harbor, so she's actually, nice. It's nice that she's nearby, that she can always pop in and help out, and um make sure there's not wild parties going on while we're, down here working.
Totally.
I'm sure Wesley was just waiting for us to, run down to Florida for work.
Animal House.
No, yeah, totally. Risky business. Like we're all 80s kids, right? We've all seen the movies. And although, you'd be surprised, Ring cameras, definitely
That helps.
help shut down a lot of ideas before they get going.
I know. I'm glad there were no cell phones when I was a teenager. That's for
Oh
sure.
my gosh.
But yeah, the idea is putting the effort in now to building it, so that in a year and a half, when he's off to college, like, again, we wanted to take advantage of the momentum, and start working on this. Because if we don't do it now, um, it's opportunities may have passed us by. we may not have the energy for it. But it's also, we want to know if it's viable. So, I think the idea also in the timing was, we're still tied to the Hamptons to a certain extent for the next year and a half. It would be nice to know if this is going to be a reality for us. And if it is, great. By the time he's off to college and we're established here, we'll be able to spend chunks of time here and keep rolling with client projects and working on the store. And if it doesn't work out, then well, we gave it a shot. Then we'll figure out what our alternate empty nest plan is.
Yes. Logistically,
fortunately, yeah. Fortunately, things seem like it's going okay. So
okay,
we're not so much worried about the alternate plan.
It actually
that's good.
I thought about it when you did this, and I was like, I just envisioned that being tricky. And the reason I thought that was because kind of what you touched on before, your kids you become an empty nester, and that's actually a really high risk time for relationship problems because people are trying to reconnect and really okay, we've been focused on these kids. Now we have to really focus on our relationship too. Not that you haven't throughout, but it's, it's different when your kids become a little bit more okay, I don't want to be around you,
Yeah.
So there's that. And but then are you were on the same page about this, which was because it's a huge endeavor. And then handling it logistically about where, the staff and the building, out the space and the managing the multiple projects that are going to come from that. How has that been for you?
So Jennifer and I are very organized. We're planners. We like to plan things. We like to build things. So, as far as, it's we go out to dinner and we look around the restaurant and we're redesigning the restaurant. We go to a hotel and we talk about what they did right and wrong. We live and breathe design. It's something that we're always talking about. It's so even when it's we talk about it even when it's not work related. It's just something we love. It surrounds us. It's something that we connect on. So being able to build this together it's kind of an extension of that. It's very fortunate that we love working together, because it would be very difficult to do it otherwise. It'd be difficult for if she was trying to do this on her own and I had a completely different job. So the fact that we get to sort of bond over this and work on this together it's fun. It's a lot of hard work. I think putting the store together and putting our first furniture collection was probably the hardest two things that we've ever done in the 22 years we've been together. But it also makes it that much more satisfying, especially when you're doing it with your partner, building something together. So we love talking about it. We love planning. So this is something that sort of evolved naturally in talking about wanting to spend time in Florida and wanting to do more work here. And how do we do that? And so the Kip Spade strategy and transitioning from the idea of a smaller design studio to a retail store. These are all conversations that happened
Right. Organic sort of
over dinner, late night, like what does it all look like? How can we do this? And it's it's sort of come organically, but also it's something that we've sought out.
Well, I imagine it would be very difficult to I'm sure the execution of building that space out, you're not local, must be difficult. You're establishing a new client base in a remote area, that's difficult. Hiring staff, managing that space, your old space, that has got to be a new set of challenges you're not used to.
Totally. totally. You know, we met a great contractor we were introduced to. He just walked in the door. Named Damon, who he worked on our Kips Bay show house room, and was so easy to work with. We're like, oh my God, what a blessing to you know find such a nice guy that's also super talented. So we worked with him on the build out of the store. He was a great communicator. You know, even when we couldn't be here, he was able to, you know, FaceTime us. He got to know us and understand our aesthetic and what we were looking for. So even when he had to make, you know, quick decisions, you know, he really, you know, he was doing it from a place of really trying to picture how we would have done it and what we would have wanted, which was super helpful. And then, you know, staffing, you know, just networking and connecting with people and you know, we have a like a family approach to, you know, um to, to our staff. Like you know, we hire people that are talented, but also that we like and think that, you know, will be a good fit and are fun to be around and, you know, and work hard, but also have a good sense of humor and you know, and when we do have to spend time together, we can all enjoy each other's company. It's, you know, it's when you're working with a team, especially in, you know, in our design studio, we have 4 designers there. Well, 3 now, one moved down here. Um, but we're all in an open room. We're all chit chatting. We're all talking about work. You know, if there's a personality conflict, it's not going to be fun for anybody. So we really prioritize the chemistry of our staff. And so we, you know, we did a lot of interviewing and networking to get the staff that we have, and it certainly helped having one of our designers from the Hamptons uh, volunteer to move down and spearhead the design team down here.
That's fantastic. That's perfect. And you know, I've heard you mention multiple times sense of humor being a really big part of how you run the business. And I, you know, from interior design community, we love that because that's, you know, pretty much our favorite thing is having a sense of humor about this industry. So I love it. And I think that you've created such a great vibe. And, you know, I love your new showroom. I've seen pictures. I think it's gorgeous. So I wish you
Thank you.
nothing but success. And I know it's going to happen for you because why wouldn't it? I mean, honestly, who would want to
That's, you know, we've
work with you?
well,
Yeah,
we, you
really.
know, we said about the showroom, we're like, listen, you know, if the showroom, you know, if it just covers its cost and it leads to, you know, interior design jobs, I'm fine with that. You know, we like the idea of having a curated store, and we're, you know, we're excited to, you know, we like working with people, whether it's design clients or just even people that walk in the door. You know, we like people, we like talking about design, we like helping people with design. So, you know, we're happy to do that. And then there's actually there's an aspect of the store that we have a good design trade program. So we want to be able to work with designers as well.
Yeah,
We have we have a short lead upholstery collection that's made in Miami. So, you know, we sort of have like control over that. We have a partnership with the Shade Store to do, you know, like full window treatment program. That if you just work with the Shade Store directly, you get a more limited, you know, limited access to what they're able to do. But working through us, we have, you know, full workroom abilities. So, you know, it's we like the idea from talking about a business model of being able to, you know, work with, you know, somebody that just wants to come in and buy a chair or a couple accessories, working with designers that want to come in and order multiple pieces for clients and build that that relationship, and then also build you know, build an interior design business down here.
right.
Um, and that's so from you were kind of talking before about like from a business model point of view and showrooms closing down, you know, we considered that, and that's why we try to think of this sort of like a 3-prong approach to doing this. It wasn't just sort of like open the doors and hope we sell, you know, enough sofas in a month to pay the bills. Like you know, there's sort of a a a broader strategy in what we're trying to do down here.
That's fantastic. Well, I will get word out to designers. I'll do that.
You are good at that.
Yes. And they should be working with you because you guys are fantastic. So I think, why not? Absolutely.
I think part of
that's what,
when we
about
sorry, what
designers. I love when
yeah.
designers go and support designer owned showrooms. That is, and sometimes that is like a tricky thing with the designers because they get a little nervous about, oh, are they going to know my clients or things like that. But I always recommend it because they're going to understand your business. They don't want your clients. Anybody who has a designer who has a to the trade program, they don't want to ruin your business. They want to help you grow your business. They're going to give you ideas you never thought of. They're going to build a community for you to give you access to things you don't know about. They're going to help you with their expertise. And more importantly, they're going to understand your process better than any other showroom out there would understand it. It's kind of why I recommend, my Doma to people, often. It's because Sarah was a designer. She understands from the designer perspective. I mean, there isn't a project management software out there that was made by a designer who already was, so it's like you support designer owned businesses because they will get it and they want to help you. They want you to be successful.
Exactly. They know, they know that you prioritize the level of detail that you're looking for. When we did Kips Bay, we got to know, people in the community, store owners, other designers, the trade showrooms. And it's been such a warm, welcoming community that, first of all, that was really touching for us. We're not necessarily expecting that, although we kind of should have, because pretty much everyone we've met down here, we just, in the industry or not, has been so kind and fun and just really nice to meet all these people. But the design trade, especially down here, has been very. It really does seem like a close, supportive community. And a few of the shop owners that we met were so supportive in helping us with our room at the show house. The contractor that we met, the wallpaper hanger, who we did use at the show house and then used at the store. So we were sort of referencing that support that we received, and then we thought about other designers that are doing the show house or working on projects down here, and we know what it was like to be down here and not have great resources lined up, and then got to meet people and got to find great tradespeople through references of people in the community. And so that's a big part of what we want our showroom here to be able to do, is to be a resource, especially for designers that are they're out of town, and be able to handle their window treatments and handle a short lead upholstery order because they can't get everything in time. We want to be that support system for designers working down here.
Absolutely. That's just fantastic. Well, anyway, we wish you the biggest success. We want all of these designers that are listening to go in and see the showroom, report back and tell us how amazing it is. Thank you, Austin. Thank you, Niall.
Thank you. It was great
Thank you
chatting
so
with
much.
you too.
All right.